There's a question that every single organization has to grapple with. How do you build leaders you can actually trust? Trust with your mission, with your money, and most importantly, with your people. So today, we're going to dive deep into a really unique leadership model from an organization called Restoring Hope Ministries. We're going to see how they build trust before they ever grant authority. It's this intense, character-first approach that is, honestly, pretty eye-opening.
So let's just start right there with that central problem. In any group, handing over the reins of leadership is a huge risk. I mean, we've all seen it happen, right? Someone looks fantastic on paper, they absolutely crush the interview, but then the moment real pressure hits, they struggle. So how do you really know? How do you know someone's true character and their actual competence? And that is the exact problem this entire process is built to solve. Okay, so how do they pull it off? Here's the roadmap for what we're about to walk through. We're going to look at their 5-stage journey. First up, how they vet for character from day one. Then, we'll get into this thing they call the 1-year proving ground, and we're going to pay special attention to those intense middle months, the crucible. We'll also see how they test for conflict resolution, which is fascinating. And finally, we'll see what it actually takes to earn the title.
First things first, the vetting process. For RHM, this doesn't start with a skills test or a review of your resume. Nope, it starts right at the front door, with this laser focus on a candidate's core character. They're working off this belief that who you are is the absolute foundation for everything else you'll do as a leader.
And you can see it right away in their interview questions. They just cut through all the typical corporate fluff. They're not asking, what's your biggest achievement? They're asking about the times you served when no one was watching. This question gets right to the heart of what motivates someone. Is it external praise, or is it a genuine desire to serve?
In this one, wow, this just gets right to the heart of humility. They want to know how you handle failure. Not if you failed, because we all have, but how you owned it, how you learn from it. They're looking for people who are teachable, people who see mistakes as a chance to grow, not something to hide. For them, that kind of humility, it's not a nice to have, it's a must-have.
So let's say a candidate makes it past that initial character screen. They don't get a fancy title or an office. What they get is an invitation to what RHM calls the BDL pathway. It's a 1-year proving ground. You should think of it less like a training program and more like a year-long leadership audition.
And this right here is the core idea, the bedrock of their whole system. Leadership isn't a starting position, it's an outcome. You have to earn that trust and authority through your actions, through faithful service, through a character that's willing to be led, and through real competence, long before your name is ever on an office door. So, let's look at the timeline to see how this all plays out. The whole year is broken into 3 distinct phases. The first 3 months, that's all about getting oriented and integrated into the team. The final 6 months focus on big picture stuff like funding and getting ready for leadership. But the real pressure cooker, the part we're really going to zoom in on, that happens right in the middle. All right, let's dive into months 4 to 6, the crucible. I mean, the name says it all, right? This is where things get really real. The training wheels are officially off. It's not just about learning the culture anymore, it's about proving you can actually operate and contribute within it. They intentionally designed this phase to test a candidate's competence under serious, real-world pressure.
And during this period, they're not just doing busy work. They're given tangible, high-stakes tasks. They have to draft a comprehensive project proposal from the ground up, showing they can think strategically. They've got to learn to navigate the organization's internal systems, proving they can actually get things done. They practice reporting to the board, and they have to deliver real work for their committee. This is a practical, hands-on test of their ability to deliver results.
This table lays out the escalating demands so perfectly. You can see how it just builds and builds. A candidate starts with a pretty simple concept paper in the first few months, but by the time they're deep in the crucible phase, boom, they're on the hook for a full, detailed project proposal. We're talking scope, budget, risks, the whole shebang. The accountability is designed to grow month by month.
But here's the thing about putting people under pressure with high-stakes projects. It doesn't just test your technical skills, right? It inevitably creates some friction. And RHM knows that how a potential leader handles that friction is just as important as how they handle a spreadsheet. That's why the process is built to test how candidates navigate the conflicts that just naturally bubble up.
And they don't just leave this up to chance. They have this non-negotiable step-by-step framework for handling conflict. But what's so telling to me is where it starts. Look at that. Step 0, prepare your heart. Before a single word is even spoken, the expectation is that you check your own motives and you approach the situation with humility. The goal isn't to win an argument. The goal is always restoration.
This right here,
This is their cultural immune system in action. This one simple rule is designed to completely shut down gossip and complaining behind people's backs. The expectation is crystal clear. If you have an issue, you go talk directly to the person involved, and you do it with the goal of finding a solution. It forces a culture of direct, responsible communication.
So after a full year of being vetted, proven, and tested, we finally get to the last stage. The pathway culminates in a formal decision. But again, just finishing the year doesn't mean you automatically graduate. The title of director has to be completely and totally earned.
This comparison shows the transformation so clearly. A candidate comes in as a learner. They serve, they are governed by others, they develop a plan, and they get mentored. A director, on the other hand, becomes a governing leader who executes the plan and provides that mentorship to the next person in line. It's a massive shift from being shaped by the organization to becoming a shaper of the organization.
So what does it take to finally make that leap? The final criteria are totally uncompromising. First, character and culture fit are still number one. Second, their competence has to be proven by the actual work they delivered over the year. And third, and this is huge, they must present a viable plan to actually fund their own role and their project. They have to prove they can sustain the very work they're proposing to lead.
And all of this really leaves us with a tough question to ask ourselves, doesn't it? When we look at how we develop our own leaders, are we just betting on their potential, on what the resume says they could do? Or are we building a system that requires them to prove their character, their competence, and their commitment through real, tangible action? It's definitely a question worth thinking about.